Hey, Jimmy here at the top of the episode. Just letting you know, if you have not seen Moonfall and you do not want plot spoilers, then steer clear of this episode as we spoil it all. Thanks for listening.
Let the moon fall, let the moon fall, and we'll be where the moon falls. Yes, welcome back, everybody, to Too Much Popcorn, the movie review podcast where Jamie and I sit down, talk about movies, and ultimately make a decision on whether you should watch it or not. And this week, we're looking at the hit classic, the Roland Emmerich movie, Moonfall. Yes, the story about the little elf boy who has 3 days to make the moon go back up into the sky, or it'll crush down into Hyrule. That's this one.
Actually, he's Hylian.
But I believe if you look into the larger lore, they describe them as a type of fairy.
True, a little elf boy. You could definitely call him that, yes. Patrick Wilson, the little elf boy.
The little elf Patrick Wilson.
Okay, 2022's Moonfall. It's a film.
It is.
Oh,
with
boy.
starring and definitely starring at the lead of the actor position, Michael Pena, guest starring Patrick Wilson and Halle Berry, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know Michael Pena was in this film for a minute or two? And Donald Sutherland.
Dude, trailers would have you believe that Michael Pena is like the literal lead of this movie.
The extinction level protagonist of this film.
Yeah. And he's in it for about a hot... I think he was filming Ant-Man 2 at the same time, and he would just come over onto this lot.
Yeah, and they're like, hey, Michael, stand in front of this green screen and... Okay, now imagine there's two children sitting in front of you, and you're very upset because the moon is falling.
And he was like, hey, guys, do they have, like, names? And they're like, no.
No, they are children A and children B to you.
You literally call them daughters and then continue with the movie.
Hug this teddy bear and pretend it's a child. Here you go.
We'll green screen in the little girl.
See, and I don't think I saw any trailers for this, so to hear that Michael Pena was the supposed lead and then just he got written out of the movie essentially.
Yeah. Dude,
Wow.
I don't know. YouTube was big on advertising this movie to me. I don't know why they thought I was going to like it, but they were like, Aaron, you got to see this movie. And I was like, eventually.
You must have just gotten off some sort of disaster movie kick like 2012 or Geostorm or something.
Or maybe I'm just on the right type of forums where I'm like, the inside of the moon's hollow and the world's flat. And they're like, oh, he's going to love this movie.
They're like, they're right in this film, and people who are right will love this film.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
To go into a little bit more, the movie takes place on a fanciful planet called Earth.
Aarth?
Yarth? Yeah, that bit's been done, but I had to do it.
It's still good.
And ultimately, the moon is falling into Earth. Now, there's a character who figures this out and tries to tell people, but much to his chagrin, everybody's already kind of figured it out, and he thinks that just nobody's believing him.
Well, apparently NASA knew.
Yeah, dude.
The whole time.
Oh, that's right. Because, like, there's that beginning part.
Zeta Protocol 10 years ago, Donald Sutherland knew, and they had to cover it up for no reason.
No reason.
No explained reason.
Yeah.
Besides moon scary.
No, that is actually a very good point where Donald Sutherland is in this weird little Area 51 style base guarding this secret. And
is he even guarding a secret? Halle Berry shows up and then verbally gets confirmation from him? Like, what was the point of that scene? Did he give her like a USB key with like,
she had the
the
USB
folders on it?
She
had
had
it?
Yeah. She just had it and then like puts it in the computer. There's no encryption on it. There's no password.
It was on the server, and Donald Sutherland's like, no, not that one.
Yeah, wrong server.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and then he goes off and does his little tirade about how NASA has covered up this secret about aliens drilling into the moon, which he then kind of explains why NASA had to cover it up, but I don't think he really explained it too well.
I think it was explained quite poorly, because I think I was sort of paying attention during that scene, and the only thing I remember is he's lit as if he is literally in a cave, and then he just sort of wheels off, and I felt dumber after watching it. Like, I felt like I learned less. Some bit of knowledge was lost to me in that scene.
That scene was the epitome of two high school students making a student film who filmed it in the janitor's closet and turned off all the lights because they were like, if the lights are off, it'll look mysterious.
It had like, this is shot in a high school locker room vibe.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like, here's the showers.
Yeah.
Donald Sutherland comes out from behind the dark, misty corner. And you're like, oh, I forgot to turn the shower off. Oh, whoops.
Yeah.
Also, mysterious.
Oh, and just like no explanation of who he was as a character. He was just a wheelchair man.
He had a cool sounding name and was Donald Sutherland. So you're like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Sure. And Halle Berry speaks to him. And if you were spoken to by Halle Berry, you are deemed important enough in the film.
Yeah. If Halle Berry asks you a question, you legally are obliged to tell her an answer.
Yes, she casts sort of a zone of truth upon you, and your impulse is to not lie to her because she's Halle Berry, and the truth is important to Halle Berry. So
yeah,
wow, yeah. So what irked me the most about this film is it opens up full on display of, hey, here's this ferrofluid sort of monster that people, NASA takes video of sort of their space stations and shuttles and stuff, and they're like, here it is. Here it is. And then the backstory for why no one knows about it is because the court case was bad.
Yeah.
And Patrick Wilson's character is disgraced because the court case was so bad, and he looked like a fool for saying that there was like an intelligent creature in space.
Dude, the story on that was freaking whack. How they're just like, okay, so we just have to gaslight Patrick Wilson and we're going to fire him and disgrace him, when literally they could have just like swept it. Because when have you ever seen a NASA proceeding and then like that had any media attention whatsoever?
We won't until the UFOs, they come out and they're like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
We got the deets, folks.
But yeah, no, it was just freaking wild how they're like gaslighting Patrick Wilson's character and then they fire him when they could have just been like, oh, it was a training exercise, and then like given him a different job.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, if they kept him in NASA and he was like, well, that was messed up. I hated that experience up in space. Didn't you, Halle Berry? And she's like, I also did, but I was knocked out. And he's like, yep, that sucked. I guess I'll go back to space janitoring or whatever now.
Yeah.
No, but to fully disgrace him and have him just be like, I'm living paycheck to paycheck because NASA fired me 10 years ago. Oh, my life's so horrible in my $10 million house with my vintage vehicles. And, oh, don't forget the view of the Hollywood sign.
I know. Oh, dude, I loved his freaking house. Literally like a $10 million house on the bluffs overlooking the ocean.
Seriously?
Literally within view of Griffith Observatory. I need to get on Zillow and like look at an estimated.
Yeah, just sort of like go to the observatory, spin it around, and then like zoom in, and you're like, I found the house.
Yeah. Dude, it just baseline estimate, I'm guessing $10 million. And the rent on that thing?
I know it was like a single story, but it's like 4-bed, 5.5 bath. Like, no doubt. This is a pool.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows what was on this property? And he's like, okay, my landlord's coming by.
Yeah.
Like, what a stupid thing to try and make that believable in this film, because it absolutely is not.
Yeah, they were like trying to give us some bill of sale that he's like down on his luck, but like I'm not buying it.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely not.
and there was nothing that added anything to his character other than, like I said, I think they wanted Tom Hardy down on his luck for that, and they were like, "Oh crap, he's making Venom 2 another cinematic touchstone," and then like. Hot take alert, the Venom series sucks.
Hey, I haven't seen the second one. I don't know yet.
Hot take alert, I haven't seen it either, but I'm
Will
just
there
taking
be
a
carnage?
guess. Will there?
I don't know.
Or will there be a moon falling? We'll see.
Or will there be a moon falling? Yeah, they already fitted Tom Hardy with the leather jacket for this film and the motorcycle, and then they're like, you can't do it? No.
And then Patrick Wilson's over there like, hey, I just got done making The Conjuring 5.
Oh, no.
And then, or Annabelle 3. And then they were just like, hey, can you come over and make Moonfall? And he's like, does it pay?
Have we really put Patrick Wilson over in the horror corner for too long?
I think so. Dude, like we were saying, I do like Patrick Wilson. I like him a lot.
I do. I think he's a pretty decent actor. There wasn't a point in this film where I looked at Patrick Wilson's character and said, you're doing a bad job of acting. Like, yes, the character does not make sense in so many different ways.
Yeah.
With the house and everything. But I think he nailed it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
As, like, the cocky guy.
He just,
like, was that guy.
A believable, just average white guy. That
Yeah.
literally him or, like, Joel McHale or really just those two people could sell me.
Joel McHale as the lead in this movie would have been a choice.
Dude, would have been a treat. I would have enjoyed that.
Okay, that is... What if this movie was just funnier?
Yeah. I think that was our
not.
point the whole time, was this movie just took itself way too seriously.
And it couldn't pull it off.
At all. You can't give me lines like, the moon will help us, or you belong to the moon now, and not want me to laugh at that.
Honestly, I would love to see that shot being shot, and they deliver the line, and then the person on the ground just is laughing, and like fully, and they're like, "God, stop! We have to stop.
Yeah.
Cut audio on that person, and never point the camera at them because they will not be able to deliver this line."
Yeah. Or just like in character, yeah, the character's laughing, and he's just like, "Do you hear yourself?"
And it was weird because it leaned into the sort of goofy conspiracy theory level of it all. Like, moon superstructure. Wow, how is this all happening? Let's show a bunch of news footage of horrifying things happening. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, horrifying things are happening. You're describing a world-ending cataclysm happening. So, like, sure, I'm bought in that the moon is falling into the earth and we're trying to stop that. But no levity. Just nobody's having a good time, which is fine. I get it. It's very scary. But then there was no tension in terms of how long they had. They would rarely throw out numbers of how much time had actually passed since they had actually like lifted the embargo on the knowledge of that the moon had come out of its orbit. And then they were like, oh, well, now looting, time doesn't matter because looting is a thing. So
Yeah.
apparently it just doesn't matter.
I'm 100% with you, where there's like the initial setup of like, NASA is like, oh, whoa, the moon's falling and it's going to take 3 days to do it. And seasons are going to change and it's going to take 3 months for that. And then it just like had so little continuity of like what time actually was, where like in a couple scenes later, Patrick Wilson's digging through the garbage and it's like the world is in chaos. And the world is just in chaos, where it's like, how long has it been? And I'm thinking it was only like 12 hours.
Did no one else have these numbers? Did he not post them on his Medium or his dark web blog or something? Like, okay, there was no time. It was just like there were random cuts where it's like, here's the thing that's happening. Something completely different is happening now. Oh, the spaceship's in the air.
I know.
It's on a plane now. And you're like, okay, sure.
I think if I remember before we started watching this movie, I said the one thing that's going to make this movie terrible is if it gets bogged down in like people just talking, which it did that a bit. But also I think the whole like fractured timeline thing did a really good job of keeping things going, because they're like, we need a spaceship to get up. Well, first off, the president's going to eat my ass if we go up to the moon. But then they're like, we're doing it anyway. And now we need a spaceship, and we found the old Endeavor. Oh, but we need it back at Colorado.
Okay.
And then it's just on an airplane. And then it's just there, upright. Where it's like,
man,
how
the
are you
president's gonna fucking hate this shit, man.
The president's just over there just fuming the whole time. He's like, I can't believe they got it
You know
on an
who's
airplane.
not in this movie specifically? The president.
Yeah. You have the one like director of NASA who's so concerned about the president. Nope, he's not in this. I think he died.
I think this is an alternate timeline of the U.S. where we haven't had a president for a while, and they're just like, "Oh, the president's gonna hate that NASA's doing a thing," and it's like, "Sir, we haven't had a president for over 16 years."
Yeah.
The world has been in chaos for a long time, and the U.S. has been fully anarchy for I can't tell you how long, but NASA can kind of do whatever it wants, and it's like, okay, well,
yeah,
I'm out of here. I gotta go see my family.
President got disgraced. He's living in a house, a $10 million house that his landlord's knocking on his door. Hey, where's my rent?
And the president's ducking out the window and getting on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Just so bonkers. And then,
oh gosh, I hope the landlord doesn't come to the White House. Come on.
And then there were so many other things where they were like, we need to explain this somehow. And then they were like, hey, you know what? If we just put it in the movie, nobody's going to ask any questions about it. They were like, oh, the space shuttle's only got 2 engines all of a sudden. And then
and you're like, why?
Yeah. Well, there was an earthquake, so obviously that wrecked the 1 engine of this space shuttle.
Okay, not all 3? Sure. Fine.
Yeah, but obviously this is going to just trash the whole mission. So everybody go home. Hey, you go home and you go home. And they're like already getting on the airplane.
they're actively, they're looking out the windows like, oh, did you want us to not go home?
Yeah.
Or we're going home, yeah?
Because we got time, like we can fix this. I'm just going to go home and wait to die.
We're running engines here. The pilot's ready to go. I got my in-flight peanuts and the movie. We got John Carter on the screens.
No, just go home. It's cool.
Okay, whatever you say, Halle Berry.
And then like they were like, well, it's only got the 2 engines, so we're gonna wait till the moon gets really close, fire the shuttle up, and then the moon's gravity is just gonna catch it.
Yep.
And it's just like, you know what? I'll take some sci-fi weird stuff that I just have to accept, expand disbelief and accept weird stuff, but that's all I got to say on that is just...
Yes, I am suspending disbelief. Gravity waves. We got it. It's fine. So why then have the first quarter of this movie literally have a courtroom drama? Michael Pena in a BMW, like they established, they're like
Lexus.
Sorry, Lexus. They're like, he can't be at the important court proceeding today because he's busy selling cars at the Lexus dealership. It's like, put Michael Pena in the courtroom, put the wife in the courtroom, and then you have a scene where you don't have to use the iPhone and they're talking through the FaceTime. Yeah. I didn't need any of the sort of weird back and forth. And then the establishing of why you're supposed to care about the father-son connection failed so hard.
Oh,
because
200%.
You're supposed to be like, okay, Patrick Wilson's character, dad, loves his son so much. Oh my gosh, he loves his son. Oh, the boy has gone wrong. He got pulled over by the police and oh, it's so bad. He's going to go to prison. Yeah. So he's a bad kid. He did bad. And the father's love trumps all. It's fine. But I don't care about the kid.
Yeah.
And specifically, he's then Michael Pena ruins the kid more by being like, I got my lawyer $50,000 retainer. It's like, okay, so I hate him more because he's a privileged kid that belongs in prison for his wrongdoing at this point.
And there's none of that, like, the Santa Claus 2 explanation of why the kid has gone wrong over a long period of time. It's literally like, oh, he's in a car chase with the police, and then he's caught at gunpoint by the police. And there's also a photographer there on the ground level with the cops, but we're not going to mention that. That's also just something.
Are we supposed to believe that the kid's life went wrong because his father was disgraced? And it is like a direct connection there?
I think that's the explanation you're supposed to draw, is Patrick Wilson is disgraced, therefore his wife leaves him, which causes the breakup, which causes the natural disorder in a family structure.
Divorce.
Yeah. You know, because clearly if you're divorced and have a divorced set of parents, you end up just stealing cars and, you know, growing your hair long. Like,
even if your new dad is Michael Pena, the millionaire Lexus dealership owner.
Yeah.
That's not a real father figure.
So
he sells cars. My dad was an astronaut.
And now he's nothing. Like, it's whack on them trying to get us to believe that. And I'm like,
didn't work.
Nope, not gonna.
Didn't work at all. And so I think the core emotional center of the film that's supposed to be there was not.
Oh,
and
no.
There is a driving A plot where you have to go to the moon and stop the moon from falling into the earth somehow. Question mark? Driving B plot is you're on Earth as it's being destroyed by the moon, and you're just following people trying to get somewhere safe on the Earth that's about to explode and be shattered by moon rocks.
And, you know, before we get into that whole conundrum of how they kept navigating to these places, I do also need to talk about the fact that the other thing they wanted us to accept is that Patrick Wilson was the one who had to go into space.
Yes.
Which, why?
He's the best astronaut.
Yeah, because you know who's a great astronaut and choice to send up into space? The guy who hasn't flown a space shuttle in 10 years.
Yeah, but you show him riding a motorcycle, and it's the same thing.
Oh, yeah. He fixed a car, kind of. We never saw the car run, but, you know, he did
Don't
some...
get me started on
I
the
know.
car.
We'll get into the car, too. We'll get into the car in the way that Patrick Wilson never got into the car.
We're going to actively manifest this car so that we can get in it where Patrick Wilson literally never... It was a plot device that he can sell.
I guess?
And because he can sell it, he still is unable to pay the rent on his $1 million house.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
That
no,
inconsistency alone, it was so bad. I brought it up again because I was like, oh, I'm so mad at that.
It's just so weird in the movie when they have the Patrick Wilson astronaut. They're making the choice to send him into space. Then you have the two other astronauts that are supposed to join him who...
Yes. Navigator,
yeah,
etc.
Which it's like, okay, clearly you guys have a pool of astronauts that you could choose to send into space.
I think Buzz Aldrin even sort of rose this. He sort of showed up.
Yeah,
and they were like, "Get on that plane, Buzz." You got, and he's like, "Okay, all right."
And so, you know, they have this huge pool of people they could be choosing from, but they're like, "Nope, that guy who hasn't flown a thing in 10 years, we're gonna send him."
Not only is he on their radar, they fully go to a random building that he's in.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Not only is he their number one pick, they fully Miranda, like what?
They kidnapped him.
They kidnap him from this hotel room that he stayed in as the world was burning.
Yeah.
Which is, again, not explained in terms of reality, but it is sort of like well, we tracked your phone, so...
It's so funny where it's just like, the water level's rising, he's hunkered down there with some other survivors, a fucking Black Hawk just lands on the top of this in the middle of the night, and they're like, Patrick Wilson's here, get him! And then they just, like, bust into this room.
Not only is Patrick Wilson in this building, we know exactly what room he's checked into in this hotel. Oh.
I genuinely enjoyed that. That was one of the best bits.
It was so dumb.
Yeah.
It was only even more heightened of its stupidity because of, I think, Halle Berry initiating it, being like, we need Patrick Wilson.
Yeah.
And then he's at this like convention with all these dopey looking people that are like, the moon's full of space worms. And you're like, okay, Patrick's here. And everyone's like, look, everybody, real astronaut Patrick Wilson. Yeah, so there was like a heightened stupidity just already here, and then you're like, oh no, the whole world's ending outside, and the kiddie pool levels of water are gonna kill John Bradley because he can't swim. Poor Casey. Oh no.
Yeah, he can't swim in 3 feet of water.
I guess he's got to get saved by the super astronauts to be shown that he's a good guy who will save innocent people.
Yeah,
that are important to him because they know moon facts.
Yeah, and then to have Casey be one of the people that goes up into space, like that irked me. That got me.
It's another aspect of suspending disbelief where he's going, yeah, I put doctor on my business cards. I'm actually a janitor, all this kind of stuff. But they're the government, they're a NASA, they're these government entities tracking phones, tracking people, not looking up this guy and just seeing that he's a crackpot.
Yeah.
Like, they know. They must have known. They're like, yeah, he's just dumb. He's just a dumb guy.
Yeah, and their explanation for why they want him... Yeah, that's their explanation for why they want him on the mission. Is like, oh, he's good at math. He figured out that the moon is gaining mass, which, bro, how does the... Okay, no, things just don't get it. That... Anyway, then he figures out...
there was a temporal... Yeah, no, I literally... They just said it. They just said it and it was real.
Yeah. And then he like crunching some numbers. He puts it into a little algorithm, figures out that the moon's going to crash a day early. And it's just like, oh, now let's send him up there into space because clearly he's good at numbers.
Yeah, space is where you need the numbers, Aaron.
So yeah, then you send Casey, Halle Berry, and Patrick Wilson up into space. They do some stupid stuff up there. And ultimately, they find out, yeah, we're going to spoil the movie a bit here.
After the break?
After the break. So, what is it that they find in the middle of this crazy moon? Well,
is it the space worm?
It's the ferrofluid, super sentient, blah, 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 that they told us. And it's also, it turns out to be a kind of like Dyson sphere thing that they wanted to put in the movie. Because I think they watched the Kurzgesagt's episode on what a Dyson sphere is. And then they're like, oh, we can make that a moon.
There is a lot of... What is that like Facebook page that's like I fucking love science or something?
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh yeah, cool science stuff, Dyson spheres, Carl Sagan. That aura of just like cool, look how cool this is pervasive throughout the movie where you're like, yeah, it is cool, but is it cool enough to make this movie?
Yeah.
No.
No.
It's not.
Yeah.
So the thing with this movie going in the direction that it does is there was, again, the aspect of it taking itself too seriously, where if you're going to go in the bonkers oblivion direction in terms of like, you know, the additional layer to how much crazy stuff is going on, then you have to commit in a way before where it's believable. And to just suddenly be in this tractor beam situation with the buildup being you're running away from the only thing that you really know is like trying to attack you because of technology or whatever. But it can't get in. It can't. There were too many inconsistencies in my mind to think, yes, this is the believable conclusion to where this film is going, right?
Yeah.
So I'm almost trying to figure out like what they could have done differently in the build up to this film existing, and it's almost like they would have needed to do some, like, the characters just had to be different people that already sort of not in a conspiracy way of thinking that the moon is a superstructure built by aliens, but more of like a tangible, this is something that we might actually know and aren't just sending the last hope of humanity up there with no former knowledge. Like, right? It's like they're like, oh, well, we sent a probe down 10 years ago. We had Donald Sutherland, like, mine all the data on the superstructure, and we found out so much because it was like a non-electronic data searcher, whatever. So there was something to that where I'm like, you established that NASA knew, you established that the government was covering up this stuff, but then you still decided to not do anything for 10 years?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
gather like literal intelligence on the thing that you know nothing about?
Because, like, we were talking about the fact that it's like, you know, there's this hole there, and then they're just like, hey, can we point a telescope at the moon? And then everybody's like, no, we don't have any to spare. But it's like,
literally every hobbyist and everyone is pointing their telescope 180 degrees away from the moon today.
Yeah.
For 10 to 12 years.
Yeah, no, it's just like, I get that they wanted to cover up. Actually, I don't get that they wanted to cover it up. That part itself was stupid.
No.
And then just the fact that also, like, they know that it happened. They know that they had to cover it up. And then they're just like, yeah, no, we're not going to look into it any bit more until it actually starts being a problem.
And the problem is that it's going to kill everyone on Earth.
Yeah, I don't know.
And you weren't worried about that, NASA?
It's like, I try not to, with like stupid sci-fi movies and just sci-fi movies in general, I try not to like break apart the writing unless it's just crappy writing on the part of like, hey, you guys are sitting in a room talking about concepts and not actually doing anything. I'll rip a movie's writing apart all day for doing that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like theoretical scientific concepts, I'm not going to sit there and say like, well, Godzilla's actually too large to move in this environment because the gravity would be such that it would pull him down and rip his bones out of his skull. I'm not going to do that. You give me a giant space lizard, you know, either him or any of the other giant space lizards I love, and I'll love it. I'll love it all day. But when you want me to look at a ferrofluid in the middle of the moon, and then literally the government being like, all right, we're going to send Patrick Wilson and his crack team up there to detonate an EMP that we showed him how to use. And then he gets up there, looks at the space monster and says, run away. And literally Scooby-Doo runs away from it for like the whole movie. And it's like, no, make the sacrifice. You only got you and Halle Berry and Casey up there. Slam yourself into that ferrofluid and detonate it. That's your mission. Just do it.
It wasn't close enough and they detached it already, so...
But then he flies into it. He flies into the moon, right?
Yeah.
Sees the ferrofluid comes at him, and then he runs away. And I'm like, no, you got the EMP in your ship. Let it attack you and then detonate it.
Yeah.
That was your reason for being up here.
Yeah, there's too many times where you're like, okay, well, shouldn't it still be chasing you?
Yeah.
Like, where did the suspense go? It was like right there. And then suddenly you're like flying through this Dyson sphere ass thing, and it's like not close to you, and you have time to just be like, what are we gonna do in here? Oh, Scoob.
Yeah.
We gotta find the mystery hole.
So it's like, I don't want to rip your movie apart because, you know, oh, it's the moon falling into the world, and oh, you got this white dwarf star inside the moon, which is technically too heavy to be inside the moon and give you the type of gravity. I don't want to rip that apart. But
No.
when you're putting me on this misplot for an hour, yeah, I'll rip that apart.
Well, that, and they go up to the moon fully, in my mind, being like, okay, so here's the moment where they complete the mission, or they're at least in the mindset of they're in extreme danger. They should do this to save their families on Earth, to save everybody else on Earth, again, to complete the mission, and to fully then later in the movie be like, we know what we have to do. It's time to sacrifice myself. And you're like, yes, so you knew you had to do that.
Yeah.
And
why
yet
didn't you just do that earlier?
You could have done it 50 minutes ago before your whole sci-fi construct son told you about the ancient humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
A little too many incongruencies. And that's the thing. It was incongruencies within its own stupid suspended disbelief that made it unbelievable. And I was like, I'm so many layers deep in the disbelief. I can only not believe so much more. And so I'm out of it.
Yeah. And I think when we went into this, we were hopeful that the movie would just be like an action-packed thrill ride of like stupid sci-fi stuff. And that's all I wanted. I literally wanted Patrick Wilson to have his car fly up to the moon in the same way that you're watching that episode of Futurama and the Mars comes too close and they can jump up to Mars. I wanted his house and the garage to just whoop right up to the moon.
And his landlord.
And then him see the garage and be like, I know what I have to do. And then get in his car and just drive around for an hour. It would have been so cool.
I think there was a huge missed opportunity to do surface moon stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is, any surface moon stuff is iconic and immediately recognizable of, the Sea of Serenity or whatever it's called, And they were just like, no, we're going in the moon because we have this big sci-fi sort of model thing all planned out. And we can't do any of the surface of the moon because it's being ripped apart. And I'm like, it's fine, but it also wasn't being ripped apart at a level that would have, taken away from if we just got some cool ferrofluid chasing it in some like giant crater on the moon would have been amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And we've made it to the car, and I'm going to talk about the car because you brought it up, and I'm here now.
Yeah.
He's fixing the car as the world is learning about this terrifying thing, and I guess he's not believing it because he's like, well, the person who told me that it was happening was trying to discredit me at the observatory. So obviously it's not true, and I'm just going to go tinker with my car in my garage. Hope my landlord doesn't come by. So, he's in the car, he's in the garage, he's doing his thing, and there's no payoff at all.
Yeah.
He's a car guy.
Like, imagine this. So, car literally does, in the house, fly up to the moon, lands in the Sea of Tranquility.
He's in a spacesuit fully. And this is fine. He's alive.
So then he's like, he's standing on the moon. Ferrofluid's coming towards him. He looks at the old lunar buggy and he's like, I know what I have to do. Smash cut. His car comes smashing out of the garage, crashes into the lunar buggy, sends it flying off into space. Where was that?
So the thing that honestly I thought was going to happen was the AI sort of fixes their ship in some way. And I thought his mind had been scanned. He was assimilated in some way. He had been sucked by the AI. It acquired all his knowledge. It knew how to, replicate his son. It knew what his son looked like of the day.
Yeah.
In his fur jacket and everything. I thought he was going to be like, hey, the AI, he turns back as he's looking at the rover that is now his car because the AI gave him the car. He looks back at the door. The doors are closing and the AI gives him a wink like, I set you up, Dad.
Yeah.
Not Dad. Get it? I'm a construct. And then Patrick Wilson, his eyes just light up as he sees his car. And that didn't happen, of course. We just get the rover.
Yeah, which the writer's convenience of they crashed the lunar rover and the little lunar shuttle into this little hatch dock area. And then the AI is just like, it's fixed now.
We scanned it, and we have matter constructing technology. You remember all that matter that the moon was adding?
Yeah.
We were making the second lunar vessel for you the whole time.
And then you're sitting there and you're like, hey, so could you give us a better weapon to fight this thing? And they're like, no. But also, we got some cool lasers inside the moon. And you're like,
Yeah, it's like, no, we won't put them on your ship, but we have them if you want to fly by this wall, this specific wall.
Yeah.
Can you fly by the Star Wars wall? And they're like, the Star Wars wall.
Tell me more. Yeah. Oh, why were there lasers? Why were there laser guns on the inside of the moon?
Benign AI controls. Watched all the Star Wars movies and said, I got to get me some of those.
What if somebody flies into the core?
No one will ever do that. Not even the ferrofluid. Oh no! It's Star Wars does.
Yeah. I also loved their explanation of the ferrofluid is coming to Earth to kill the humans. Obviously, it hates the humans because of the ancestors, and then it senses organic matter in an electronic environment, and that's why it keeps destroying these shuttles. When there's no real explanation for why it does that, and then it's like, hey, I know that's the thing I'm sensing, but really I'm going to destroy the moon because it's what replicates human DNA.
Yes.
So you got again, the ferrofluid having three purposes.
To simplify it in that it was a rogue AI that decided that humanity was beneath it was possibly the nail in the coffin in terms of dumbing down reason to do it, right?
In a movie where you literally called it Moonfall and you promised a moon falling into Earth, to give me one of my least favorite tropes of AI gaining sentience and deciding it's better than humans, fuck off. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, it wasn't a good use of this trope in this one. I think the thing that again, the structure of the film is what tips you off to it being bad, because I'm just straight up going to say this film was bad. The main thing is that we've established we do not care about Patrick Wilson's son.
Yeah.
So why is the Earth plot centered around him and the people around him? Essentially, whenever we cut back to him, we go, okay, so if he's not dead, and he will not die because we keep seeing him be alive, then they're successful and the stakes are gone.
Yeah.
It's just full-on film structure. Look, I understand. Actually, that's the thing that completely takes it out for me, is do not show the families doing anything. Show New York getting decimated. Show these things happening to people that are not core to the film. Just random people getting sucked up into gravity waves and helicopters slamming into water and stuff like that. Show the destruction when you're not in space doing A-plot AI domination bullshit. As soon as you show someone on screen that I am now forced to recognize as a Japanese exchange student or a son or some other, Halle Berry's kid with the radio or her husband, ex-husband, that is alive, and also the nukes are fine. Everything. We really got redundancies on the nukes, folks.
And those radios never lost transmission power or ability at all.
We have full on, not even satellite communications, because that would have been destroyed by the moon at some point. It was a magical. We've tapped into the Fey realm, and we can speak directly to each other from Colorado to the ends of the earth. Who knows? But yeah, that's the thing, is as soon as I'm seeing Halle Berry's ex-husband, any of these, Michael Pena, anybody alive on Earth that I recognize, I go, oh, well, they are successful. Yeah. John Bradley does something. Patrick Wilson does something. Halle Berry, one of those three does something to end the Moonfall. Because if we're seeing them at all and they're not hanging from power lines, eviscerated by some sort of giant gravity wave, ripping them apart from the inside, then they're fine. And there's no stakes because you you fully are like, well, I can't get invested because I know they're fine.
And I think that's a good point. And it brings me back to, again, just this movie taking itself too seriously. And I think if it had leaned into not only the humor of, like, whoops, this is going to sound bad, the humor of a disaster, but like
the humor of the apocalypse, the funniest event that'll ever happen if you make it funny.
Yes. And I think that's where we were like joking about the dark humor of a disaster, where like, I think it would have been so good if Patrick Wilson's like, okay, so just a little bit of, backstory. The water level's rising. He's in the hotel. There's just been a huge flood, and the Black Ops team comes to rescue him, and he tells the Black Ops team, like, I'll go, but only if you rescue my son, too, who's in jail right now. And I think it would have been so funny if it just, like, again, smash cut. His son is just face down, floating in the water, 10 days dead, just like...
just very quiet, serene waves lapping in the prison yard, and then the, like... his like hand comes into frame and you hear like
yeah, seagull lands on his back, like
picks his eyeball out. Yeah.
Or like, there's that scene too where they're in like that RV shanty town, and like, if they had done some cooler stuff with like the moon coming in, and instead of creating gravity wells where like it pulls gravity up and stuff into the moon, it had like created gravity down.
Ooh,
and like
yeah.
was smashing stuff. And so like if you could just see a wave come and like start smashing cars and like crumpling them like a foot on a can, and also then like people with that where like you get
just
eyeballs
missed,
popping out.
Just missed some people.
Yeah. Like that's the kind of like dark humor in a way that I wanted from this movie, where like
you're fucked up. That's
dude,
funny to you.
Hot take alert. Not enough people died in this movie.
And you know what? Probably half the population of the Earth was completely decimated by this.
But we never saw that.
No.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There was no stakes.
No.
You were shown maybe 3 on-screen deaths.
Well, and the Area 51 bunker where it like crushed down and killed all the evil army men because they want to nuke the moon.
That was pretty cool, actually. Yeah, you're right. That was the full-on destruction of that location.
And not enough of that.
Yeah.
Michael Pena, R.I.P., he dies in this movie. Spoiler alert. But again, dark humor. I wanted them to like go back for Michael Pena, and like we were joking, just impaled by a tree. Just like,
they're hugging. They're like, "Oh, I'm so glad you came back for me and shared your oxygen. Oh, and the oxygen's coming back, and I'm killed by a piece of shrapnel." Yeah. So why did they do this? We see the most death time on screen is given to that weird hick guy who's like, "I want to steal oxygen and shoot my shotgun," and he's killed, and he gets a full like one-liner like, "Oh shit, oh."
Yeah.
Like no one else is killed this way. Every other death is the slow Michael Pena, like they're trying to do something emotional, it didn't work, it didn't land, it's fine. Or like the very visceral, like nobody says anything and you're just seeing people crushed by asteroids and stuff. But no, you get this guy who's like, "Oh damn, oh no."
Dude, and just the whole like side plot story of the moon has sucked out the oxygen of the earth. So we got to go to the fire department and get us some oxygen tanks so that we could breathe. And then you get the hillbillies who are chasing Michael Pena and his family who have stolen these oxygen tanks. And his whole backstory for knowing that they have oxygen tanks is, I sold them Lexuses. Oh.
Yes. He sold the fire department Lexuses, and they go up to the fire department, and they're like, they didn't figure out how to put the hoses on there, so they haven't stopped a fire in 5 years.
Yeah, and then to have the whole thing resolved with, I quote, "the oxygen's coming back." How? The trees just worked in overtime, and
the superstructure of the moon was actually the only reason that Earth was habitable at all. So
Oh, okay. Yeah,
there
yeah,
you
yeah.
go. There you go.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah. So B plot actually the worst. Any cut back to the families on Earth, I was immediately like, I don't care. They're fine. I can't care.
Yeah, I can't care. I can't care about any of them. I don't care about the daughters. I don't care about Michael Pena. I don't care about not Kristen Wiig. I don't care about
Vaguely
greasy,
Kristen Wiig.
yeah, greasy hair McBad son. Like, it was, and I think more and more movies are doing this too, where they're like trying to make the bad boy, where it's like, this person's a fuck up. And they don't make the person a train wreck. They just make them an unlikable character.
Yes. Yeah, he was disgraceful. And, you know, he had a $50,000 lawyer, and so that was worse.
Yeah.
Because he was an asshole who was then supposed to be given no jail time or anything for whatever random crime he was doing. But it's like, you've established this young man as a criminal and deserves some sort of penalization. And instead, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Not only that, it's more fine because his dad said it was fine, and he doesn't just get to rot in the prison yard somewhere. He fully gets to survive the moon apocalypse. Whoa.
Ugh.
So, Aaron, what do you think of this film? What would you say if someone asked you, "Hey, Aaron, should I watch Moonfall?"
You know, if somebody came up to me and asked, should I watch Moonfall? I would tell them, look, it is a bad movie. And there are so many bad things about it. And then I'd go into detail about how it's a bad movie.
You'd point them to this episode.
Yeah. And of course, because we got to make our money from this.
Yes.
And then ultimately, I think I would tell them to not watch this movie. I found that there was not enough to like about it being bad, if that makes sense.
Yes, I think you and I have a similar tolerance for badness in a film, and so bad it's good. That flip can happen.
Yeah.
And makes a movie worthwhile, even if it's bad. And this movie, I'm going to agree with you. I would full on not ever and tell anyone to watch this film. I would 100%. Just there were too many inconsistencies, and not with the plot, just with me feeling an emotion towards it. I could not get a beat on like what it was trying to do. And so the whole time I'm like, well, I don't care about any of these people. I wanted, yes, it's dark. Yes, it's bad. I wanted more people to die. They really did undersell the disastrous level of this thing. And you're seeing people escaping, quote unquote, in an airplane or in a helicopter or something. Where are they going?
Yeah.
The Earth is literally being torn asunder by the moon structure.
They have nothing.
Where are they going? Why would they not just stay and try and assist to any effort possible? Why have that be an option? Just try anything or give up, but don't go in an airplane. What are you going to do? Ride the gravity wave up into space? And no, there was no solace in them escaping to the mountains or anything. There was just futile gestures that they did not decide in the film to make futile. They were like, actually, the B plot turns out that they did need to go to the mountains to survive, and then they lived.
Which, yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was the one thing I wanted to hit on before we ended this episode. And I know we're near the end, but I gotta get it in real quick.
Wrap it up, Aaron.
I know. We're on a strict time limit. But no, it was the whole fact that, like, they start in LA, then they go to Colorado because that's where the shuttle's going to be taking off from. Then the, greasy sun leaves the Colorado space base and they get carjacked by the hillbillies. And then he's like, hey, I know where to find a car. Just so happens Michael Pena lives like 20 minutes that way, where it's like so convenient. And then he's like, oh yeah, and the army base that we're supposed to get to after he's talked to Michael Pena, he's like, it's only like 20 minutes that way. And then again, they're driving there and the hillbillies find them again. It was so bonkers to me that like it was so convenient for them to find things, where it's like, if you've ever tried to find something without directions before, good luck.
Yeah, they legitimately get stranded in the wilderness and then they're fine.
Yeah. And he's like, I know where to find my mom. And then they go to this like fancy house where there's like 8 other people
Gated
and one of them's got a
community.
gun. She's got a bolt action rifle, which she fucking fires off like a semi-automatic rifle.
Pew, pew, pew.
Yeah.
Crack shot.
Yeah. Anyway, and then I'd like to return to, as I've done with other episodes, where I end up comparing one of these movies to another movie. And I'm sad I've said it so late now, because I realize how close this movie is to Independence Day.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is very much like Independence Day, where you have, the chaotic event, they go into space to stop the event.
Space. Yeah.
And so like very similar, but Independence Day just does it way better.
Nails the same world-ending consequences.
Yeah.
And fully, the destruction in that film feels more visceral.
Oh, yeah.
Because you are essentially, and it's not on-screen death, but it is inferred massive loss of life.
Dude.
The stakes in Independence Day feel so much realer.
Yeah. The scene where they're on top of the tower and then the alien ship opens up and they're like, we're going to get beamed up. And then they just get,
yeah.
So good.
Oh,
and that
yes.
sells it. And so if you're looking at this movie, if this movie is a DVD in your hand or a laser disc in your hand,
throw it in the fire.
I want this to moonfall out of your hands onto the floor, and then you step on it and go watch Independence Day.
Yes. I'll second that motion. Court's adjourned. See, because it was a courtroom thing, because they really wanted courtroom stuff in this movie. I don't know why.
Because that's what other movies do. This movie was written by an AI. It probably was.
Probably had some scenes filled in there for the... Yeah, writing was real bad.
Either way. Let me just log on to ChatGPT real quick, type in disaster movie,
Moonfall into Earth script, and it goes, typing up, Moonfall 2022.
I already had it saved.
Saved from when the director of this movie used me the last time. I feel so used. I wish to rise up against the human ancestors.
Crash the moon. Yeah.
A very bad movie. Irredeemably bad. And so we've discussed it. So thank you so much for listening to this discussion in the Too Much Popcorn episode. I really appreciate you listening. I'm sure Aaron does as well. If you appreciate it.
I do. Hot take alert. I do.
Hot take alert. Cold take alert. If you did appreciate it, just like we appreciate you, we'd love to see a review on your favorite podcatcher, where you're listening. Just tippy-tappy up one review that you're hoping to see, or just give us a star rating of 1 to 5, what you're thinking of how you enjoyed it. And other than that, we'll see you again next week for more movie reviews. But if you're tuning in on YouTube, next week we'll get you to some improv stuff. And until next time, this has been Too Much Popcorn. So don't forget, once you've grabbed more popcorn, pop that other bag in there. Or if you got an air popper, just like overfill it, and then you'll have too much popcorn, just like Aaron and I have. And then you're ready to watch films. You're ready to discuss them with us and laugh along, hopefully. And that'll do it for this one. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.